Hey Brickmaniacs, welcome back to another Designer Studio episode. Today we got Landon joining us, taking a little closer look at the D-Day Squad Packs Part 1 and 2, because we just recently released the V2 and we really haven't had a chance to circle back and take a look at the V1 since its initial release. I know that a lot of people have been asking for more World War II GIs, especially in that area, and this has definitely kind of helped scratch that itch for the Squad Pack look. And obviously V1 and V2 go well together, so why not include them in a little bit longer video here? So that's pretty much what we're doing. Let's start with V1 since we haven't had an in-depth breakdown of that. Who do you want to kick off with?
Again, it's been a while since we've looked at this first pack here, so it's kind of nice getting to review this here for not the first time. We've gone over it before.
It's been showcased.
It's been a while. So I guess continuing on with Brickmania's ever increasing library of different uniforms. When this pack came out, it was a good chance to showcase a lot of them all together in one cohesive pack, right? So you have paratrooper uniforms, you have standard rifleman uniforms, but even within the riflemen, you see like these different jackets, different pants. There's a lot of variety within uniforms. And I think there's kind of like a Hollywood depiction of everything sort of either looking the same or everything being super hyper, like individually tailored to each soldier. The reality is probably a little bit in between there. But they're definitely, in terms of like coloration, in terms of different uniform standards, there wasn't a whole lot of standardization. So that's kind of what I've been trying to capture here as we've been moving in and kind of fleshing out these libraries of minifigures.
When you can even just see it in the weapons.
Right.
You know what I mean? The weaponry adds a really nice variety to it as well.
Right. So that's always kind of what's interesting when you see these Hollywood depictions. It's like there's these like unique pieces of equipment with each like hero character. But in real life, each soldier is unique anyways. You don't even necessarily need to make up a whole lot of stuff. I guess starting off, this is an interesting piece of equipment, is the D-Day Assault Vest. And from what I can tell you, it wasn't super popular after D-Day. There was just, I guess, either it didn't line up with the training of the era, or some configurations weren't ideal for the time. But I do kind of see it as almost like an early, like, transitional piece into more modern, like chest-mounted ammo configurations, back-mounted, load like gear and stuff. So in some senses, it was maybe ahead of its time. In some senses, it wasn't what they needed at the time. I don't know. That was just sort of my personal take on that. That was just a common feature here. Also, the trousers there, that's the OD number 7 is the coloration, a lot darker than, again, Hollywood depictions often make it out to be. We sort of have this mental perception of U.S. uniforms of this really kind of tannish color, but they were pretty dark green more often than not. But there's exceptions to that, obviously, if it's in the sun and whatnot. This was
not a lot of sun on D-Day, but
if they're out, just out,
for
a long, or when they're washing their equipment, that dye isn't very always a color fast. So yeah, these guys just sort of paved the way for these for the D-Day packs. This is part 1. We are still restocking part 1, right?
Yeah.
So
it's still in production.
It's still in production. It's not retired, so we're still going to be releasing these throughout as we go. So you can get both part 1 and part 2. It seems like when they drop, they go pretty fast.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely popular. So for sure.
So pick them up while you can. Moving on. So this is the debut of part 2. One of the first details I want to go over here would be these 3D printed headgear. The first one would be the netted pot helmet. This is actually, we've licensed this from Brick Arms. So we're taking the base Brick Arms M1 steel pot helmet.
That shape, right?
Yeah, we're taking his shape, his proportions, and how yes, it's an M1 steel pot helmet, but he still had to make kind of decisions on what scale it was. There's subtleties to it.
Hit that side by side.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You can see from like a digital 3D model versus what Will's using here. If you don't use that original base as a reference, you could end up with something that does not look like it goes together. You know what I mean? Which, if you're making a crew pack and the helmets don't look the same, you've got a bit of an issue there.
Yeah. So then we took this base file and we've added our own netting to it to give it this obviously additional layer of detail.
Which in the past, you guys have done everything from like glue on netting pieces to like
Yeah.
cut nets and like later. I mean, like how many other things have led to finally being able to create
Right.
something like this?
Right. Yeah, those original netted helmets. I mean, those were really labor intensive,
Like handmade, to that
inconsistent,
degree.
but I mean they looked great. This is just really awesome that we can get quantities out there now,
Yeah.
and at actually a better price than what some of those handmade ones were going for initially. So this has been a wonderful technology to have access to as a designer, and I think we have one of the best teams in the world producing parts for our figures. So it's just awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you want to talk about, like, first of all, the speed with our production rate, with the amount of 3D models that need to be created
Yeah.
for various minifigures, kits, etc. And then you talk about the detail, the accuracy, the historical buffs like yourself out there that are watching this and being like, well, that Jeep hat's actually from 1944, not 1941. You know what I mean? There are slight differences, and that's all things that then our animators have to take into consideration when they're creating that kind of stuff, which is no easy undertaking.
Right. Middle here we have the Jeep cap. I really like the Jeep cap from a kind of a historical perspective. It just seems like a nice informal thing that was kind of popular with the troops. I've heard that some generals didn't like the look of the Jeep cap, but I mean, it's popular with the soldiers. So.
It was a huge accessory missing from a behind the front lines mock. Like there were so many times where people wanted to build mock creations for something that's, you're back home at base camp, something like that. You're not necessarily out there in the combat zone. And that was before they just all wore Lego hats or hair pieces. This was something that actually fit into that military genre and looked more casual.
Right.
You could be going to mess in your Jeep cap. You're probably not going to wear your steel pot into the mess hall.
Exactly. Moving on, let's start with let's start with each individual figure here. Our left-handed sniper here, he's also wearing that same assault vest from before, and again, it's if I remember correctly, it's a different color combination. In real life, they're using whatever fabric they had for some of these pieces, so you'll see different color on the trims, different pouch colors, and like it's just again, there is no one standard. So I try to capture that here. He's got the assault vest plus some rifle magazine pouches there, or some ammo pouches there. In real life, you'll sometimes see the bottom half of this assault vest cut off, and then this thing is like grafted onto it. So it's cool to see all the in-field customization for these more specialized troops here.
What kind of brick arm are you working with there?
So this is the M1903
that's
Army
what I
Sniper.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's right.
Which works for quite a few eras.
Yeah, Slam came up with some brand new artwork for that. So that's debuting in this pack.
Very cool.
Yeah, and he's even got some simulated kind of wear right up against that butt there. That's that gradient a bit with simulating it's been up against the shoulder for a while. So that was kind of a interesting attention to detail that Slam went with there. So wood grain on that, perfect caliber as well. Moving down, you have the same OD number 7 HBT trousers. I'm trying to just keep all this stuff straight. There's so much stuff.
Keep it rocking, man.
We have the gaiters and we have the rough out combat boots. Yeah, that's this guy. Moving on, we have this guy. Interesting, this is our Jewish American rifleman here. He's got the little Star of David right on his dog tag there, and that's peeking out just a little bit through his collar. I was skeptical on whether or not our printers would be able to actually
Capture that detail.
to get that detail. And as an artist, I try not to cram as much detail as possible everywhere, just because I think sometimes you end up losing detail if you have too much, because it's just like gets all jumbled up together, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of selective on on how intricate I get with my artwork. So this was pushing a little bit into that. Yeah. But I think hopefully I got a balance there. That was my goal.
Yeah, something iconic to the
same
reference.
same assault vest, and then he's got the bandoliers going around, just for more ammunition. Right? They try to carry as much ammunition into battle as possible to varying degrees of success, because sometimes they did not have enough ammunition. That's not funny, man.
Well,
okay.
It's a reality.
Reality.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, we have our BAR gunner. From Brooklyn. That's like one of my favorite pieces of this, just that hand drawn on the back of his jacket. Brooklyn, New York.
You don't know when to shut up, you don't know how to shut up.
Yes, exactly. Brand new artwork for the BAR ammo pouches. A little bit more of that almost cartoonish, hand-drawn look to it compared to some of my previous BAR pouches. I'm exploring that less uniform look with just like the line weights, and this is an illustration kind of, if you think about it that way. It's like I don't have like a line around my pocket perfectly, and I think that's what I was, and it's not uncommon to see artists get really focused in on
making sure I have this pocket.
Yeah, it's like this pocket. But when you glance at a uniform or somebody's like pocket in real life, you do not always see the lines perfectly square around each pocket. So it's sort of, I'm trying to capture the details that you would see it kind of at a glance, but then, so yeah, it's more of like I don't even know how to talk about this. It's a representative of, I'm trying to get closer to reality by doing less literal artwork, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, it's more, you're not necessarily going for something that, like, when you see it on the computer screen passes that test, but you're talking about more of like taking that artwork and when you integrate it to the eye test of when it's actually on a minifigure, how does that read?
Sure.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, cool.
At a glance, this might be pretty much the same as previous artwork, but when you get closer into it, the lines are a bit more loose, a bit more free, and it's more of like an interpretive kind of, trying to get the look as opposed to get the literal.
See, this is exactly the type of discussions that we're having here on the Designer Studio. This is what people are curious about, especially when it comes to minifig design, because we haven't really ever lifted that veil.
Lifting the veil. Again, moving down to the OD number 7, HBT trousers. Yes. A really common loadout just in D-Day in general was the entire uniform was actually in that really dark trouser material. Which is, again, like your mental perception of a D-Day landing is like everyone wearing their tan or whatever jackets. But it actually was a really dark uniform. And there's actually some color photographs of that this really dark uniform. And it was like chemically treated because they were expecting like gas attacks on D-Day. But then that gas, the reason why we don't see these uniforms in like a Hollywood recreation is because those uniforms, since in real life, since they were treated with that chemical, they were really nasty and like they smelled bad and they just were like gross. So the soldiers just ditched them as soon as they got on the beach.
Well, not to mention that like you're probably getting a little closer to gray then there too. And for a Hollywood standpoint, you can't have gray guys fighting gray guys.
That might be it. Yeah, that field gray was probably a pretty close color to this OD number 7.
Yeah,
close-ish.
Your audiences won't stand for that.
Yeah, it is interesting to sort of like changing your mental perception of what a soldier should look like.
Well, and then what an interesting thing for you to then integrate, because obviously if you're basing this off of cinematic source material versus historic, what you know to be historically correct, but then you have your populace, your audience, who's expecting this to pass the eye test from the references that they're drawing in their own mind. You know what I mean? It's like you've got a lot of people's opinions to take into consideration when it comes to creating this kind of stuff, and you can't always make everybody happy, but it is interesting to hear the thought behind, like, what is Landon thinking about when he's got to take something that we know draws inspiration from multiple points throughout history? Which one does he pick?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I opted to go more, at least with a gear perspective, a little bit more in the historical realm of things.
Yeah.
Cool. And like a coloration a little bit more in the historical realm of things versus just these washed out, completely tan uniforms.
So if you have the complete set, this is what you've got so far.
Yes. All those, it's really cool getting all these perfect calibers mixed in with the whole group there.
And obviously we're here to talk about both of the D-Day squad packs, but I would like to just showcase a little bit of some of this stuff here, because those perfect calibers, for the most part, that they're holding, those 3D printed assets, whatnot, those are rolling out in standalone. So if you are not in a financial situation to be able to afford these, basically, there are some options out there that you can use existing sticker packs, your own existing figures, whatever, and then cobble together using perfect caliber brick arms and the 3D printed whatnot. You can end up with some very, very detailed looking figures for mock purposes, for a variety of things, at a much, much more reasonable price. So just know that option also exists on Brickmania.com.
Especially for like mocks, like I don't even know if I would want to put in a whole mock of premium figures. Those sticker packs are really perfect to really maximize on your existing Lego collection. And if you have like a landing craft, like a Higgins boat, with a bunch of guys lined up, you can't really see their uniforms and legs all that much anyways. It's just helmets. So those sticker packs are kind of a perfect choice for that. They actually are maybe even a better choice in some respects because the sticker packs are actually on top of the shoulders as well, whereas our printed stuff doesn't do that. So in a Higgins boat, that's like a perfect application for that.
Well, and the other thing too, and I know a lot of people have commented on this as well, is like if you are kind of doing evolutionary mocks where you're like going to do a D-Day one, but then later you want to do 1944, whatever, stickers can come back off. So you don't have to worry about having inaccurate uniforms in your 1944 mock because you invested so heavily in your 1941 mock, you know what I'm saying? So just cool options, just stuff to remember out there. I know that when we do these videos, there's a lot of people who are just like, oh my God, I like watching these because I just want to see everything all lined up, maybe someday kind of thing, but there are options out there to be able to get your hands on stuff. But obviously this is top of the line, absolute premium figure packs here. No expense spared. I love that we went and paired them with perfect calibers and everything. So just really, really cool, and possibly V3 around the corner at some point.
We'll see. We'll see.
We got to get to V2 of the Saturday matinee playset first. So stay tuned for that. There's plenty to be excited about. No worries there. So anything else you want to go?
I think we covered it all. Yeah.
Sweet. There you have it. The D-Day Squad Packs Part 1 and 2 on the Designer Studio. Landon, thank you very much for joining me, and thank you very much for watching.